Alright, what's good everybody? Quancredible here, and today we have the review of Chapter 81 for the Four Knights of Apocalypse, which oddly enough connects back to what was it? It was Volume 7. There was extra pages in that one that had a story, or not really a story, but a small scene that didn't really fit for where we were in the story, but it actually fits in perfectly right here, so I'll show that too when we get to it. But in the beginning, it does start off with Percival's group, and we're really in the aftermath of the battle between Arthur and the Four Knights. So it's really just Percival's group kind of just relaxing in their own room. Where, well, I guess it's really Annie's room, but they're all just kind of crashing there. And we get this interesting scene from Percival where he's talking about how he couldn't fight at all, and not against King Arthur or against the Chaos Demon. And he feels like he's the only one who didn't help. Where, I mean, that's half true, but it's not completely true. Whereas Lancelot did fight against Arthur, and Gawain did really well against Galland, and really was kind of around the entire fight until she de-transformed. You know, Donnie did save Percival. Nansen's cured the whole neurotoxin. So it's like a lot of people really did do a lot of things. So it makes sense that Percival would feel like he didn't really do much, seeing as he tried to fight, but just couldn't really do much against anybody. But it doesn't really get him too down. He is still really excited. So this really does show that Percival is going to have a lot more moments to like train and get a lot stronger in the future. It's kind of where I don't know if they're going to directly go into a training arc here after this. I feel like they should, but I'm just not for sure based off of how this chapter was kind of going, because they didn't really give us any hints for the future. Just really just a wrap up. Aside from this, we have the scene between Lancelot and Theodos, which probably would be my favorite scene in the entire chapter, to be honest, because Theodos is a very interesting character. As you guys know, in one of my previous videos, I did say I do believe that this to be the reincarnation of Derriere, same as like a lot of other people think this, just because of their, visual appearance being very, very similar. And then her even coming out to Melascula and Galen, where at least where their bodies are, to kind of pity them or give her respects, does kind of insinuate that there is, a small connection between them, which if she would be the reincarnation of Derriere, would be that it would be, they were, comrades at a point in time. So whether she knows this or not is kind of up in the air, because it's kind of insinuated that she may be a little bit older than what she is when Lancelot calls her a hag, but she does, reiterate that she's 16. But one of the main parts of this is kind of Theodos kind of pressing Lancelot, talking about how, he did do really well against Arthur, but it's kind of weird that he couldn't stop an assassin or capture them, which would make a lot of sense. If you can fight evenly against the strongest guy on the other team, why were you not able to beat some way, way, way smaller person? To which we all obviously know, it's Jericho. Lancelot really couldn't go all out. He didn't really want to fight nor kill her. He does try to blame it on like him being unable to lift some kind of magical restraint that was placed on him. So there's no choice but to let the assassin being Jericho, silence him. But it really is kind of stupid, because before we didn't know who this prisoner was, but now we have a lot more context thanks to this. This was just a Camelot knight that they did capture. So it's not necessarily that it was someone important, it's that it was someone important, but it's rather this knight knows how to get to Camelot. And as we can see from this conversation, they don't really have a way to get to Camelot. So getting the information out of this guy was very important, so they could kind of bring the fight to them. And this is also good because this gives us an insight onto more of a state of how this war was kind of going. So this does show us that Leonis has been unable to like actively fight against Camelot. It's kind of just they have to take their wins or losses whenever they pop up and just try to meet them there. So they aren't really getting a chance to fight on their own terms, since they cannot make it to Camelot, which, as we know, is in some kind of weird separate dimension. Aside from that, Theodos does tease Lancelot about, just because you can read minds doesn't mean that you can understand feelings, which is very true. Lancelot's ability does only allow him to just, read the hearts of other people, or just read the minds of the other people. So it's not like he can really go much farther than that. He still has to interpret everything from that point. So that is kind of true. And then from there, Lancelot does kind of space out and say he doesn't even feel that way about Jericho, which is pretty obvious. No, I don't think anyone was thinking he was going to have feelings for Jericho. Maybe you did, but for the vast majority of no one was actually thinking that. And then he does envision Guinevere, and he talks about maybe he'll go visit her tomorrow, which we get a panel of her afterwards. But I was definitely thinking that maybe Ironside captured her, but I'm guessing she's fine. or maybe this could just be a vision in Lancelot's head, and maybe she did get captured. Because as we know, Ironside was sent out to look for Arthur's bride in the Arthurian lore. That bride is like always Guinevere. Arthur always ends up with her. So it would be weird if Ironside said he had already like, you know, made preparations or handled it when Guinevere is still right here in Leonis. That would just be really strange. Another scene that we get is Tristan. We get Tristan. He's kind of rage training off on his own. He's really upset about how everything went. And this is like a huge look into another side of Tristan's character, whereas Tristan does take this very seriously. And we can also see he's feeling a bit like, I don't want to use the word like inferior or maybe jealous or somewhere in between of the relationship that Lancelot has with his dad, because when he's training, he's remembering how Meliodas was towards him. He was overly worried, trying to still be really protective of him. While when Lancelot showed up, he was like, yeah, Lancelot, you got this. So maybe Tristan wants that for himself, or maybe he just doesn't want Meliodas to kind of baby him as much as he did. He just maybe, or he could just want to be like his own guy. It's kind of tough to say exactly like where his mental state is, but it's definitely somewhere in that like spectrum, if I had to, I guess. And you also get one page for Gawain. I don't know if she's just having a really bad nightmare, or if she's just, you know, having some really bad thoughts, or she's just really scared or like homesick. But she's remembering what Arthur was saying to her about, you know, running away from home. But she wants her grandfather and her granny. So it's weird that Gawain like also chose to be off alone. Like she didn't want to be with anybody else. She just chose to just kind of deal with this. So I wonder like what that is going to mean for her like the next time we see her. And then as for the ending of the chapter, it is Lancelot showing up to kind of check on Percival and the group, which makes sense because, you know, he was with them. You know, he was sent for a period of time, but they're already asleep. And then it does connect back with the extra pages of Volume 7. This came out during the fight between Tristan and Melascula. It was a short conversation between Lancelot and Tristan at nighttime. As you can see, you know, Tristan is wearing a similar garb to what he had on in this chapter. And basically, it's Tristan talking to Lancelot about how he did stop in Benwich for a while with Gawain, and telling them that his parents are worried about him. And that, you know, Lancelot can kind of go home whenever he wants. But Lancelot says he cannot go home yet until he fulfills his goal. His goal, basically 100% being saving Jericho or rescuing her. Or maybe it's even beating Arthur. It could be a mixture of one of those two things. But no, Lancelot isn't coming back until he does one of those things. And that's essentially the chapter. Like I said, it was just really more of a wrap up, like a full wrap up of what just happened, and then resting. And, you know, we're going to transition into whatever our next arc or next, you know, adventure is going to be. Like I said, tough to say where they're going to go after this. They're more than likely going to meet with Meliodas, all of them, and get the full plan or the full rundown. At least I hope that's what they do. I do know that Nakaba from Seven Deadly Sins would do this thing that, like, once everyone's all together, before everyone can all meet to get one cohesive plan, a group splits off and does something else. So I hope that doesn't happen because it feels like it always does. So we're just going to have to wait and see on that one. If I had to guess, I would guess something revolving a Percy training arc, because Percival, as he said, was the only person who really couldn't do anything, and he absolutely needs it. He straight up needs it bad. He can't really effectively control his powers, and he's had like no proper training outside of wrestling with his granddad. So he's in desperate need of, you know, some structured training. As well as, it's kind of interesting because it's not like he really has like his own like signature move. Like by this time in Seven Deadly Sins, like Meliodas' full counter stuff was like very, very established as his signature thing. Whereas Percival, while he does have hero type magic, he just does stuff with it. He doesn't really have his own like move. So maybe that will come into pass in this whole training arc. I would love to know what you guys think is going to happen next. Do you guys think we're going to go into training? Or do you guys think we're going to go immediately on an adventure? Maybe do some like reconnaissance on Camelot? Or are we going to split off into groups? There's a lot of different things that could happen. So I guess I'm very curious to know what you guys' opinions would be on that. All in all, I'd probably give this chapter like a 6.5. Like nothing really happened. Like we did get to see everyone's perspectives. Like at least everyone important. The only person that was really missing was like Isolde, because we did get to see a small bit of Jade and Xion. So a little weird that we didn't get to see Isolde at all in any capacity. So, you know, but no one's really checking for her all like that. So there is that. That being said, you guys make sure you like the video as well as subscribe to the channel for more content, and I'll see you all in my next video.